sports, a bridge that brings people together. And here in the Commonwealth, it's no different. From the gridiron to the hardwood and beyond, we all have a team we love to talk about. Now for the teams you care about, here's Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice.
And welcome into another Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and also we live stream on ESPNKY.com. You can go on to my Twitter account at Radio Trevor Rice, and you'll see a link there that'll send you back to every show that we've ever done if you want to listen back to an interview that maybe you didn't have a chance to listen to. Trevor Rice with you, and I'm glad you are hanging out with me, coming out of another sports weekend. A lot of football that we have to cover, high school, college, and pro. We'll talk about last Thursday's game with the Tennessee Titans this hour. I will have Ryan Lemon of Kentucky Sports Radio joining me in the next segment. We're going to talk about the Wildcats. We'll talk about the Cardinals this hour as well. WKU coming out of a bye week this week. We'll get ready for their play once again, and also high school football, where we're coming out of the weekend in a couple of good feel-good stories, I guess you could say. Let's start out first by congratulating Wes Arnold and the Fort Knox Eagles for ending a 16-year drought, people, against Fort Campbell. The Army Bowl happened on Friday night, in which Fort Knox ended up winning 19-10. And there's a couple of feel-good stories. We're going to talk about the other one here in a bit. But, man, if you're a player on that team, and I know they have seniors on that roster this season that they've been there all 4 years, which is kind of rare if you know anything about Fort Knox or Fort Campbell, having kids stay on for a program for 4 years at one of those two high schools, and they have exactly that going on. So I want to congratulate Wes Arnold and those boys who had never beaten Fort Campbell. The team hasn't beaten them in 16 years. So when you finally end that drought like they did on Friday night, winning 19-10, that makes you feel good. In fact, let's look at some of the stats real quick. James Rousey, the quarterback, went 14 of 24. Did have one interception, but passed for 235 yards Friday night. DeAndre Sparrow had 6 rushes for 36 yards. And looking down the line, receiving yards, Wiseman had 5 receptions for 85 yards. Gradney had 79 yards off of 5 catches Friday night. And Jaden Thorpe had 55 yards on 2 grabs Friday evening. So congratulations once again to Fort Knox, as this one is for you. You have done it, ending that 16-year drought. Man, I bet that bus ride home felt really good because they traveled. They traveled down to Fort Campbell. That's why it's more impressive. You take the 2+ hour. I don't know. I'd have to look on MapQuest or whatever to see what distance it is from Fort Knox to Fort Campbell. But I'm gonna guess it's like 2+ hours for sure. So you take that long bus ride down there. You arrive. You show up. You take care of business. You win 19-10. And so the Eagles coming out of Friday feeling good, getting their first victory on the season. Next up for them, looking at their schedule, will be Campbellsville. It's going to be a tough one going on this Friday night. That will be an away matchup, as well as their next couple of games. They were on the road against Eminence, Fort Campbell, and now Campbellsville. So three away games back to back like that. You hate that if you're on the football team, but you're feeling pretty good about getting your first victory on the season. Fort Knox knocking off Fort Campbell on Friday night. Let's talk about the other feel-good story, because there's this team and player, in particular Anthony Adkins. You may remember him from LaRue County. Well, guess what? He got a touchdown on Saturday. Yes, he got a touchdown on Saturday. The Army Black Knights took on the Morgan State Bears and ended up winning 52-21. Anthony Adkins, my other feel-good story. I saw his mother, Tanya, and Tony was very excited in the video as well. They had recorded the touchdown from their television and shared it on social media. Anthony Adkins getting a touchdown on Saturday for the Black Knights, and he actually had a few touches on Saturday. If I can find his rushing total, Anthony Adkins had 8 carries actually for 28 yards, averaging 3.5 per carry, and having his first collegiate touchdown as a Black Knight. So congratulations to Anthony Adkins. My second feel-good story coming out of the weekend. Now we get to the negatives. And by negatives, I mean Kentucky football, Louisville football. If you're a Cardinal fan today, if you're a Wildcat fan today, you're kind of salty. Probably. There's a good chance that you're salty. And you have reason to be. Your team loses. I get it. Let's talk about the Wildcats first. We will have Ryan Lemond on in the next segment of Kentucky Sports Radio. He'll talk to us more about this game. But, man, conference play once again. You're now 0-2 if you're a Wildcats fan. You lose to number 9 Florida a week ago. You lose to Mississippi State this past Saturday by the final score of 28-13. And if you're a Wildcats fan, you're asking yourself, what if we had Terry Wilson? Would we have won? Well, I like your chances. I mean, that's for sure. Sawyer Smith went 15 of 41 on Saturday. 232 yards, had 1 INT. That's rough, though. I mean, if you're keeping track at home, that's well below 50% passing. That's not good. In fact, let me get a calculator here and just look at this. 36% passing, people. 36% passing. That's not going to win you many ball games, if any. Rose, looking at the rushing numbers for Kentucky on Saturday, was a bright spot. Had 9 carries for 105 yards. Lynn Bowden had 3 carries for 37 yards in the running game. Bowden, the leading receiver, had 7 receptions for $129. So, I mean, Bowden is showing that he is one of the more dynamic athletes on this offense. But when you're struggling to pass the football and you're not completing it, only 36% passing, you're not going to win ball games. Mississippi State winning and improving to 3-1 on Saturday by the final score once again of 28-13. Cardinals fans were a little bit optimistic there in the fourth quarter as the Cardinals came back and took a 24-21 lead. They were actually down 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. And then I don't know what Coach Satterfield told his team, but they hung in there and started to claw back in that one. Like I said, taking a 3-point lead. And then Florida State took care of the rest. Malik Cunningham on Saturday went 16 of 27, 286 yards, had 2 touchdowns and 1 INT. Rushing numbers, Hassan Hall had 11 carries for 57 yards. Javian Hawkins, 17 carries, could only rush for 52 on Saturday. Receiving numbers, top receiver with 7 receptions was Des Fitzpatrick, which is no surprise there. 133 yards, had 1 touchdown on Saturday. Another touchdown going to Jatarius Atwell, who had 5 catches for 69 yards on Saturday. But the Seminoles just too much in the end. You thought they were going to choke that one away, being down 3. And they score a couple of times late, 14 points in the fourth quarter, and end up winning by that score of 35-24. So if you're a Cardinals fan today, if you're a Wildcats fan today, you were probably salty heading into work. I know how it goes. College football, just football in general, even if it's a Sunday matchup, if you're an NFL person, your team loses. Not only is that the rest of that day bad, but it kind of lingers over into the whole Monday blues thing. It just makes it feel just even worse at that point. So where we have the positives starting out the hour, we had to get to the negatives, people. I'm really sorry. It's just the way it goes. Let's look at some of the area high school football scores from Friday night. Central Hardin had a bye week, so not much to report on them, even though they are our Blandon Bird Whistle High School football game of the week this Friday night. 7:30 p.m. kickoff. They will play Henry Clay out of Lexington. And again, 7:05 is our pregame coverage. So Central Hardin in action once again this Friday night. Still undefeated on the season, averaging 52 points a ball game, people. That is an explosive offense. Let's look at their opponent real quick in Henry Clay this Friday night. Henry Clay, a team, I've never seen this team in person, so we're going to see them for the first time, and they're struggling right now. They're 0-4 to start out the year. In fact, they're coming off of a shutout loss to Frederick Douglass this past Friday night. So they're limping into Bruin Stadium. And if you are Tim Mattingly, the head football coach, you are having these guys as prepared as possible to punch them in the mouth and don't let them get up to swing back. In fact, you look at Henry Clay, the first couple of weeks of this season, allowing 38 points against Simon Kenton. St. Xavier scored 48 on them. Then they only scored 7 against Pulaski County, allowing 28 2 weeks ago. And then getting shut out to their first shutout loss of the season on Friday, 27-0. Now, what you can't do if you're Central Hardin is get overconfident. You see a team limping in, you can't play down to their level. You got to just mash the gas pedal here. If you're Central Hardin, you don't let up. You up that 52-point average. You have weapons all over the place, not only in the running game, but the passing game. Your quarterback looks better than ever right now. Your defense can get a few stops, create a short field for your offense. Game over. That's our game of the week this Friday night. That'll be, once again, Central Hardin taking on Henry Clay. The Blue Devils. 7:30 p.m. kickoff, 7:05 is the pregame on 106.1 ESPN Radio. We will live stream it this week as well, ESPNKY.com. Scores from Friday, though. Let's go look at Elizabethtown real quick. Elizabethtown was in action. They were on the road taking on Thomas Nelson. Not even close. E-Town getting the third victory on the season in a shutout victory, 54-0. And just looking at some of the stats, Clay games, didn't have to pass much. 6 of 8 Friday night, 175 yards, had 2 touchdown completions in there as well. Joseph Becker, who is one heck of a runner, only had 8 rushing attempts, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns on Friday night. Easily one of the most dynamic players, not only in on the Elizabethtown roster when it comes to the running game, but I'm going to say our area. Because when he gets going, he finds a hole, he bursts through. And you better have multiple guys ready to tackle him because he is not an easy fella to bring down. So Elizabethtown getting a big victory on Friday night. Our game of the week was North Hardin and John Hardin on Friday night, and it was close. It was a 7-7 ball game at halftime. First half looked completely different than the second half. Final score, 42-7. North Hardin ended up pulling away from John Hardin on Friday night, securing that victory and staying undefeated on the season, improving to 5-0. Look at some of the stats from that game. Manny Wimberly was starting for North Hardin at quarterback. Looked pretty dang good, too. 20 of 26 passing. Did have the one INT in there, but he passed for 326 yards, had 2 touchdowns on Friday night. So Manny Wimberly, one of our studs Friday night, just looking good, passing the ball. And he has got an arm, people. I don't know if you've seen this kid in person, but at one point he tossed a bomb with ease that went like 55 or 60 yards in the air. Kid has just a rocket of an arm, and now he has the accuracy to go with it. And so he's just looking dang good at this point. Lavelle Wright doing work in the rushing game. No surprise there. 16 rushes Friday night, $172 on the ground. Had 4 touchdowns. to say that he was our player of the game, yes, it was an easy case for him. When you score 4 times in a single ball game, easily you're going to have the player of the game honors. And that's the way it was. So North Hardin winning that rivalry against John Hardin once again. That rivalry now 9-8 since these two teams started to play back in, 2003, I think is when this rivalry began. So now John Hardin with a one game advantage in that rivalry. North Hardin has a chance to tie it up at 9 apiece next season, which they currently have 4 wins in a row, dating back to the 2016 season over John Hardin. Other teams in the area, we were talking a little bit about the Meade County game on Friday night as well, as we were keeping you updated on that score. They ended up falling for the second time this season as they lost to Apollo. They got off to a strong start here in the 2019 campaign with wins over Franklin Simpson and Pleasure Ridge Park. They lost to John Hardin 2 Fridays ago, and then on Friday night they lost to Apollo by the score of 49-28. So a bad look there for Meade County, who looks to hopefully get back on track soon now that they're back to 500 on the season. And one other team that I want to look at real quick, LaRue County. We talked about them just a little bit, more so for Anthony Adkins, who had a touchdown for Army, one of our feel-good stories coming out of the weekend. LaRue County on Friday night looked pretty good, winning 54-20 against Nelson County. Let's look at some of the stats from that game real quick. Bryce Neagle had one. He was 1 of 1. He only passed 1 time, 17 yards, and pretty much Coach Jaggers has established that this team is going to be run heavy, and there was no exception on Friday night. Just looking at some of the numbers, Chance Bowen had 7 rushes for $118, had 1 touchdown. And I see like everybody got action in the end zone on Friday night. Tyrell Coulter had 7 rushes for 96 yards and a touchdown. Matthew Lewis, 5 rushes for 92 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jeremiah Belton, 4 carries Friday night, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. Thomas Boone, heck, why not share the ball some more? 1 rush on the night, 5 yards. But guess what? He found pay dirt and had a touchdown as well. If you're keeping track at home, that is 5, 7, 8 touchdowns in total Friday night for the LaRue County Hawks. So congratulations to the Hawks getting a big victory on Friday and improving their overall record to 3-2. They're pretty much on pace with where E-Town is, both teams 3-2. And now we're waiting for that October 18th matchup between Elizabethtown and LaRue County at E-Town High. It's going to be a fun one, people. Trevor Rice with you. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming today on ESPNKY.com. And coming up, you heard me talking about the Kentucky Wildcats loss, losing 28-13 against Mississippi State on Saturday. Let's have Ryan Lemond of Kentucky Sports Radio. You can hear Kentucky Sports Radio every weekday, Monday through Friday here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 10 until noon, with Matt Jones, Ryan Lemond, who will be joining me in the next segment, Shannon the Dude's on there. Yeah, all those guys. You hear them all the time, right? Well, we're going to talk to Ryan Lemond coming in next on the phone line. It's on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming today on ESPNKY.com once again. And this hour is courtesy of CC Power Sports, exit 121, just south of the Snyder at Brooks Road off I-65. Get your hands on a new or pre-owned Suzuki ATV, motorcycle, scooter, or whatever, while the deals are hot. You don't want to miss out. CC Power Sports, a short drive up I-65 in Shepherdsville. More Heartland Sports Live is after this. Welcome back into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio. We are also live streaming on ESPNKY.com. Ryan Lemond of Kentucky Sports Radio. You can hear the guys every Monday through Friday, 10 until noon, here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. Ryan joining me right now. Ryan, a rough weekend to be a Wildcats fan, right?
It was rough. It was one of those losses where you're banging your head against the wall during the game because it was so frustrating, man. Just, drop passes and bad throws and missed kicks and can't stop the run. It was just a very frustrating game from start to finish. Just the way the game started. You come out of the gate and you got a couple pretty good offensive plays and then bam, a pick six. So very, very frustrating that ended up with the Kentucky laying an egg by the end of the day.
15 of 41 passing on Saturday, 36% if you bring out the old calculator on that. Had to be frustrating on your part, considering the fact that you feel like you guys have a decent running game, right, to kind of help out the passing game?
There's no doubt. I mean, the way they ran the football against Mississippi State, you and I were talking off the air, I wish they had run it more, especially when they got to the red zone. I don't know what our red zone numbers are this year, but they got to be bad. And they got to the red zone against Mississippi State, and they just couldn't get any points out of it. They left a lot of points on the field, but I wish they'd run the football more. I think that maybe they would have got in the end zone, at least got some points out of it. But they stayed with the passing game. They threw it 41 times, and it just wasn't working. So if nothing else, maybe they had found the running game that had been missing earlier. And maybe they'd found A.J. Rose. Going into the season, they thought A.J. Rose was going to be the featured back, and he hadn't really shown that until Mississippi State. He ran the ball really, really well. And Cavassier Smoke had shown where he can run the football. So maybe now they've got the two guys that they thought they were going to have going into the season, and they have found them. Now, the passing game, it just wasn't there, man. Just drop balls, especially from Lynn Bowden, and he's supposed to be your guy. He's supposed to be your star, and he ended up still with a great game. So you hate to knock on the guy, but he pulls in a couple of those passes, and they go for points, and it could be a completely different ballgame.
Ryan Lemon of Kentucky Sports Radio joining us right now. So 2-2 now is the mark where Kentucky is. They're 0-2 in SEC play. Are you concerned with where this team is going here in the future weeks?
Well, not yet, not completely. I mean, this is the third year in a row where after a big emotional loss, they've laid an egg. 2 years ago, we had the big Florida game at home. They lost, and then they really struggled next week out and barely beat Eastern Michigan. Last year, we had the big emotional loss to Georgia at home, all the hype, and then they went down to Tennessee and laid an egg and got beat. Same thing this year. The big emotional loss to Florida last week, they went down to Starkville and laid an egg and just didn't play very well. So they just have not responded to these big emotional wins and all the games, a lot of hype, and the fan base gets all excited, and then they go out and lose it. They've just not responded well. But if Stoops has shown us anything, he's been able to rally the troops, to use a cliche, and get them ready and rebound and get them going. So I think they should have a pretty good bounce-back game Saturday against South Carolina and play pretty well. I'm not really worried about the team yet, but we're going to find out what kind of team they've got and what they're made of Saturday at South Carolina. Are they going to show up and man up and play well, or are they going to lay another egg on the road, back-to-back road games?
I know Hart stopped when Terry Wilson it was announced that he wasn't going to be playing for the rest of the season. How do fans feel about Sawyer Smith?
Well, they felt pretty good after the Florida game. I mean, I think after the Florida game, they saw a quarterback that they can win with and a quarterback that's better than most people thought. And then, after the Mississippi State game, I think you start to realize, okay, it's a shame that Terry got hurt because with Terry Wilson, you're definitely looking at an 8-win team, maybe potentially even 9-win team. Sawyer Smith is still a guy that can make the plays you can still win with, but a guy that's still going to make some mistakes. I mean, he threw into triple coverage in the end zone one time, Trevor. I mean, he's still, and that was kind of the scouting report on him. Very talented, but a guy that is just going to make some mistakes and make the wrong read sometime, and it makes you, like I said, bang your head against the wall sometimes. I think that's just what you're going to get with Sawyer Smith. Still very talented, a guy you can win with, a guy I still think you can get 7 and maybe 8 wins still this season. I still believe that. I've not lost faith with him, and I think most of the fan base still feel that way. I think most of the fan base are hoping that Mississippi State is just going to be a throwaway game. They just laid an egg after that big emotional game against Florida. We're going to find out after the South Carolina game this weekend what this team is made of.
It seems like their defense is helping them to stay in these ball games, but why do you think they threw 42 total times? Because Lynn Bowden had a pass in there as well, 0 for 1. Why do you think they passed so much on Saturday?
I don't know. I really don't. That's a question I'm sure they're going to answer today. I think Coach Stoops talked to the media today, and then he'll be asked that question, especially when they were having so much success running the football. Kentucky's offensive line was winning the battle up front, and they were proving it by the fact they were getting so much ground, gaining so much yardage on the ground. So why did you stay to the air so much? I don't know. And they forced a couple passes. That's a good question. I can't wait to hear what the coaches have to say today when they answer that.
Yeah, I was just talking about the defense. That seems like last year you couldn't get any better defensively than what you saw last year. But it seems like the defense has been hanging in there this year, helping the Wildcats at least stick to these ball games in SEC play in the first couple of games this year. So how do you feel about this unit moving forward?
Pretty good. I mean, going into the Mississippi State game, I felt pretty good about how our defense has been able to stack up, but man, they just could not stop the run against Mississippi State. That Kylan Hill is just gobbling up yards, and we said that on our pregame show. I said, hey, if we cannot stop the run against Mississippi State, Kentucky's going to be in trouble, and that's exactly what happened. They just could not stop the run, and the backup quarterback that came in there, again, a backup quarterback just becomes an All-American against Kentucky, and that was a big problem. South Carolina, by the way, going to start a backup quarterback against Kentucky. Because Kentucky fans need to be worried and take notice. But our secondary that is getting better every game. They still make some mistakes back there, but our secondary is getting better. Our linebackers are solid. Our defensive line guys are solid and deep. I mean, I'm not as worried about our defense. It seems like as a lot of people are. Our secondary guys that are learning on the job, really. I mean, they've been thrown into the fire. They're just so young and playing against SEC receivers. A lot of them are going to be in the NFL in a couple years. But I haven't really been totally as disappointed as I think a lot of our fan base seems to be about our defense.
Well, the next two games right now, Ryan, look like they could be winnable. I mean, you take on South Carolina, you take on Arkansas, two teams that I feel like that Kentucky can win against over the next couple of weeks, hopefully improving the record to 4-2 before playing Georgia. Where do you see this team overall record-wise now that you've seen them the past couple of weeks fall to a couple of SEC foes?
I really think they'll win at South Carolina. I mean, I just feel like I said earlier, Stoops has done a good job of rallying the troops and getting them to understand, okay, look, you played bad, you laid an egg, we still got a great season ahead of us, and a lot of this falls on the head coach a lot of times, and like I said earlier, I think we're going to find out what this team is made of this weekend. If they go down there and don't play well, well, then it may be a struggle at times this season. But I think they'll go down there and play well and win, and it may be doom and gloom for Will Muschamp in South Carolina after that. And then I think they win it. I think they beat Arkansas. I think Arkansas may be the worst team in the SEC this year. I mean, they lost to San Jose State this past weekend, so I think they get that one. So now they're 4-2 going into Georgia. They lose that one, 4-3. But then they've got some. Well, and then Missouri. That may be a loss. But then they've got a bunch of winnable games to end the season. Tennessee at home, they can win that one. At Vandy, they win that one. And then what is it? UT Martin, they win that one. Louisville at home, that may be their toughest game. Out of their last four, may be Louisville at home. So if they win that one, I mean, those last four games, that's still 8 wins that I just ripped off. They can still finish 8-4, and despite what the struggles that they're having right now. So Kentucky fans, just hang in there. Just hang on. Don't jump off the Clays Ferry Bridge yet, because there's a lot of wins still out there for this football team.
Hey, yeah, definitely. Ryan Lemon of Kentucky Sports Radio joining us here on Heartland Sports Live. A quick basketball question for you, Ryan, before I let you go. Is it starting to amp up a little bit? Are people getting excited for this upcoming basketball season, and how do they feel like this team will do?
It's so funny. This could be a great Kentucky basketball team. I mean, a great team, a Final Four caliber team, and hardly anybody's talking about it. And Calipari's got these great recruits committed, and hardly anybody's even mentioning it because everybody's so all in on football. I mean, that's not a knock on Cal basketball. It's a testament to Stoops and football. But this basketball team, Trevor, they are loaded. I mean, they are loaded. Now, they don't have a true big man. That could hurt them against certain teams. But they are loaded this year. They'll probably play a lot of small ball, but Tyrese Maxey's going to end up probably being their leading scorer. Ashton Hagans is back. Quickly's back. E.J. Montgomery's back. Nick Richards is back. But this freshman class of Maxey, Keon Brooks, Khalil Whitney, they are loaded this year. They are going to be a lot of fun to watch. Of course, their first game of the year is against maybe the best team in the country, Michigan State. So what? If they lose that one, they may not lose a game again until January. And I'm not kidding you. This is going to be a fun year, a fun season, and nobody's even already talking about it because we're so all in on football.
Are you going to be going to that game by any chance? That Michigan State, I mean Madison Square Garden. You going to that game?
No, we're not going to it. We're not even going to go to that game. I think Drew's going to go to it, but I think he may be the only one of our crew that's going to go to the Michigan State game. The home schedule kind of stinks in November and December, but there'll be some good games coming up in January and February for the SEC. February is a good schedule. The schedule really amps up in February. That's when Kentucky's got a lot of their tough games going into March Madness.
Where do you spend most of your time watching college football games? Do you actually go to the stadium quite often, or do you just hang out at the restaurant?
Well, last year I watched every single home game and most road games at the restaurant. So far this year, Trevor, we've moved into a new house, and I have watched every game on my couch in my new house.
Oh, wow.
This past Saturday, I sat down on my couch at 4 o'clock, and I didn't get off my couch until 11 o'clock. I watched Kentucky and Mississippi State and stayed right there and watched Georgia and Notre Dame. So either A, I'm becoming a really old man, or B, I'm just getting lazy. I don't know. It's one or the other, but probably somewhere in the middle, I think.
Can it be both? I mean...
It may be. It may be both, yeah. Well, my wife was out of town, so my best friend, Dante Key, came over, and we sat on the couch and watched 7 hours of football on Saturday. I have not... I hate to admit it, but I have not been to a home game now since 2 seasons ago, because I watched all the home games last year at KS Bar and Grill.
Look, there is nothing wrong with spending a lot of hours of watching football. I do it Saturdays and Sundays. In fact, this past weekend, I just put up a game on my other monitor on my computer, just watch a game while I'm just playing a video game or something on the other monitor, and I think I watched 3 full games on a Saturday and then watched basically 2.5 yesterday. So I think I got enough football this weekend as well.
Well, the next home game is the Arkansas game, and that is the Jared Lorenzen Memorial game. And I think I want to take my boys to that game and maybe my wife to that game, because that game means a lot to us. So that may be my first game that I go to in quite a while.
Yeah, I think that game is going to have a lot of meaning for not just you guys, but I think I can speak for a majority of the people who are, a part of Big Blue Nation. I think it's going to speak for all of BBN. Yeah, and that's a win. That's going to be a huge, I think that'll be a good feel-good game. And Arkansas is not very good. It's be a fun night, and that's a game I don't think I want to go to. So you think 8 wins overall this season?
Still, I mean, it's crazy the way things maybe we feel right now, but there's still 8 wins out there. Despite losing all we lost last year and our best secondary guy before the season and our quarterback 2 games into the season this year, there are still 8 wins out there for this football team.
That would be crazy, and I'd be interested to see who they play, too. Ryan Lemon of Kentucky Sports Radio here on Heartland Sports Live, who they play in their bowl game, that is, if they were to win 8 games. Well, Ryan, I appreciate your time, as always. Good seeing you guys when you were here in Elizabethtown. There in the summer. When were you guys here? August. It's been so long ago already. When you were ending your summer tour that last week, it was good seeing you guys, and definitely glad you came on the show today. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, Trevor. You can call me anytime. It was good to see you, man.
Ryan Lemon of Kentucky Sports Radio joining Heartland Sports Live. You can catch KSR once again Monday through Friday, 10 until noon here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. When we come back, I'll put a wrap on today's show. Maybe look to what's happening this week on 106.1 ESPN Radio sports-wise so you guys know what's on the calendar. That's coming up. It's Heartland Sports Live, 106.1 ESPN Radio. Back with more after this. And welcome back into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM. We are live streaming as well on ESPNKY.com. Trevor Rice hanging out with you. I want to thank Ryan Lemon of Kentucky Sports Radio, which you can hear 10 until noon every Monday through Friday here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, for joining me in the last segment talking about the Wildcats' loss to Mississippi State this past Saturday, dropping the Wildcats down to 2-2. We talked about the Cardinals earlier this hour as well, as they are back at 500 with a loss in ACC play against Florida State on Saturday. Western Kentucky, they had a bye week after their loss to Louisville 2 Saturdays ago, and now we look ahead to this week with the UAB Blazers coming up out of Birmingham, Alabama, and we're going to see what's going to go on with this game. Western Kentucky, coming out of the bye week, you'd like to see their offense, kind of set the tone early in this one, being a home game for the Hilltoppers. Maybe if they can get out to a quick score or two lead, maybe the defense can help them out, maybe force a 3-and-out here and there, or just get their offense back out onto the field to take care of business. But you'd like to see this offense really come together, whereas they've been averaging about 21 points a ball game right now. 3 touchdowns, I mean, you kind of like that if you're a Hilltoppers fan, but at the same time, like, after you've seen what this offense has done in years past, you lose in a heartbreaker in week 1 to the Central Arkansas Bears 35-28 after you were up in that game. Then you go and you take on a conference foe in FIU on the road, winning by 6. And then you keep it tight against Louisville, losing in that one 38-21 2 Saturdays ago. UAB, a team that you would like to see them compete. I feel like both teams are about the same level. Then you go on the road against Old Dominion. You host Army. Army looks dang good. If Western wins that one, that would be a shocker in and of itself. Then this year that you play Charlotte, you play Marshall, Florida Atlantic, Arkansas. Can this team rattle off at least 6 or 7 games, 6 or 7 wins, and get themselves bowl eligible when it's all said and done? That's going to be the main question, because they still have some tough competition this year. That Marshall game, you never know how that game's going. They play Arkansas later this year, and if you know anything about Arkansas, they're not one of the better SEC teams, but they recruit slightly better than a school than Western Kentucky. But we'll see how the season goes. They play Florida Atlantic, Southern Mississippi, Middle Tennessee this year. We're going to see how this Hilltoppers squad not only adapts, but if they can pick it up offensively to help out their defense a little bit. That game going on Saturday. So if you're looking to catch the Hilltoppers right here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, you will be able to do so, as they are hosting UAB Saturday evening, a 7 p.m. kickoff here on 106.1 ESPN Radio and 1400 AM on the other side. Tennessee Titans, they will be in action once again, as they're coming off of a loss against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and not just a loss. It was one of the ugliest games I think I've ever seen from a Marcus Mariota-led Tennessee Titans team, which they've had some ugly performances over the past couple of seasons. Losing 20-7 on Thursday Night Football. This Sunday, they will be taking on an NFC South opponent in the Atlanta Falcons, a 1 p.m. kickoff this Sunday afternoon. Titans pregame coverage begins at noon. Mike Keith and Dave McGinnis will bring you the call of that one at 1, and you would like to see the Titans try to get back on track. After beating the Browns, they've dropped to some divisional opponents, 2 teams that with backup quarterbacks. Can we just talk about that a second? Backup quarterbacks. The Indianapolis Colts with Brissett, and then also the Jaguars who come in with a backup quarterback after Nick Foles goes down. How are you losing the backup quarterbacks? I think the defense is maybe a little bit better than what we anticipated too, even though I think the Colts were going to be one of the favorites, at least a top 3 team in the AFC this year, had Andrew Luck been playing, because you knew their defense was going to be strong. Jaguars, they've been known for their defense here in recent history, but you can't give up that many sacks if you're the offensive line. Mariota spent more time on the ground than he did on his feet Thursday night. So you have to get back on track. Mike Vrabel has to have these guys ready. You have to win the battle in the trenches. You have to establish that you are here to play for 4 quarters early on. And if you're the Titans, you need to get up early. You need to ground and pound with Derrick Henry. Hand him the rock as much as possible. It seems like this Titans offense is better when they're doing that. When it's in Derrick Henry's hands, the Titans tend to have a better chance of victory. You got to milk the clock. You can't allow that Falcons offensive game with their wide receiving core. You can't allow Matty Ice to sling it all over the field on you. So we'll see how that goes. Sunday at 1 here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM as well. The Blandon Birdwhistle High School football game of the week is happening on Friday night, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Henry Clay out of Lexington will be visiting the Central Hardin Bruins. Henry Clay still does not have a victory on the season. Starting off the season 0-4, it'll be Central Hardin, who's still undefeated, coming out of a bye week, so they're going to be fresh coming into this game on Friday night. And when you're averaging 52 points a ball game, you're looking even better, just for the fact that, well, their offense has they haven't had to play much defense. E-Town scored 40 on Central, and Central still scored 57. So as long as you can get a stop or two here and there, if you're the Central Hardin defense, you'll be okay, because this offense is taking care of business right now. That's our game of the week. Again, that's Friday night. Henry Clay, Central Hardin going at it. 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we will be live streaming that on ESPNKY.com. The Cincinnati Reds will be in action this week, as well as the MLB season is coming to an end, people. If you can believe that, which means we're coming up on the end of Marty Brenneman's final few calls here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. The Reds will close out the season with the Pirates this weekend, but it'll be the final home games for the Reds in 2019, as they will be taking on a National League Central foe in the Milwaukee Brewers this week. Tomorrow, Wednesday, and an early afternoon game on Thursday. There will be a special pregame coverage tomorrow and Wednesday, I should say. I did see that email roll through. Marty Brenneman, of course, in his final season. I think there's going to be special guest appearances. I think Tom Brenneman is going to appear in the pregame tomorrow, his son. So I think it's going to be a little bit different. Marty Brenneman, his 46th season with the Cincinnati Reds, and it's going to be a memorable last few games. Now, he's not going too far away. He'll still be dealing with the Reds in some capacity, just not in the broadcast booth anymore. And I guess when you've been doing it for 4.5 decades, I guess you've earned your chance to hang up the headset and just relax a little bit, get away with the woman, do the vacation thing, go and see things. I think he's earned it. Marty Brenneman, one of the most knowledgeable guys about the game, does not hesitate to speak his mind about certain incidences that happen out on the field, whether it be the Reds struggling, a player struggling. He will not hesitate to basically call them out on it. And I think that's what fans have really appreciated about Marty, is because he basically is one of them. Whether you're the guy who's on social media tweeting about the team, he's basically that guy, except he's talking about it in the booth, game in and game out. But the Cincinnati Reds will wrap up their season with the Milwaukee Brewers in Cincinnati tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. I keep thinking today's Tuesday for some reason. I know it's Monday, people. Tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Then they'll wrap up their season with the Pittsburgh Pirates this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Listen to the action tomorrow. Reds and Brewers tomorrow night at 6:40. Then a 6:40 game on Wednesday. And then Thursday, an early afternoon game at 12:35. But that will do it for me. I'm Trevor Rice. You can follow me on social media at Radio Trevor Rice on Twitter, Trevor Rice on -air. Like me on Facebook, and you'll see some stuff that I post on, especially on Twitter. I'm more into the whole Twitter thing. So if you want to follow me on there, you'll find a link that goes to the Apple podcast, which you will be able to go back and download and listen to any show that you may have missed in case there was an interview. Maybe Ryan Lemon, for example, who we played earlier in the show back in segment 2. Maybe you want to go back and listen to that interview. Well, you can tomorrow when we have the show uploaded, as we get them uploaded every Tuesday. I'd like to thank, once again, Ryan Lemon for joining me last segment, and you as well, as I'm hoping your sports teams, whoever you support, comes out with a victory this week. It makes everybody feel that much better when your game is a positive one on the weekend, and then you get to go in with a little bit of swag a little bit on Monday, basically showing off. Or if you're one of those guys or gals who's lucky enough to wear your favorite team's gear going into work, you don't hesitate. You sport that and you wear it proudly, and then people are like, "Oh, I saw the game this weekend. They looked pretty good." And you're like, "Yeah, I know. It's my team." That's just the way it goes. Maybe it doesn't go that way anymore. I just remember that, like, from when I was in school, that I would go in. You go in wearing the team you support. People know you came out on top that weekend. Trevor Rice with you. I'll be back next Monday, 5 until 6. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio.